Rise of Kingdoms just revealed more information about Pincer 2 and the new special inscriptions, as well as a bunch of more information about the upcoming update that's landing in Rise of Kingdoms in like a day or two at this point. So today we're going to take a look at the video that was just posted on the official Rise of Kingdoms YouTube channel so we can see what we can learn about Pincer 2 and upcoming events. But before we jump in, of course, what's going on, guys? Cheers. Now, as you guys know, I am a partner creator with Rise of Kingdoms, so if you want more breaking news Rise of Kingdoms content, subscribe to the channel down below, but leave a like on this video because it really helps out the channel a ton. All right, folks, the first thing we're going to talk about, of course, is the new Pincer formation. Okay, if you guys didn't know, which you should because it's literally in the game, Pincer 2 is landing in the game in about 36 hours from the time of me recording this video, and it bumps up the smite damage for the formation from 10% to 12%, so that puts it on par with Wedge 2. Okay, if you guys recall, a few months ago they reworked Wedge. The same thing is now happening for the Pincer formation, but the question was, what are the new inscriptions going to be for the new Pincer armaments, right? Well, we do have some information about some of them, and as you can see here in the bottom right corner, this available armaments tab is basically exactly the same as we see for Wedge 2, so there really shouldn't be any confusion here. This is going to be rolled out in the same way that Wedge 2 was, or at least was reworked after the community was upset with the original way that it was implemented into the game. And by that I mean you will be able to use Pincer 1 armaments with the new 12% Pincer formation. Okay, because again, this isn't technically Pincer 2, it's still Pincer formation. There's just a new set of armaments you can use for it. Okay, so you can mix and match them, and that's one of the things that we're gonna have to pay attention to when the new Pincer armaments land in the game. You don't necessarily want to just convert everything over all on day one, because you might want to wait for some testing. Some of these inscriptions could be better for rally or garrison on Pincer 1 versus Pincer 2. I kind of doubt that based on what I'm seeing here. Pincer 2 seems like it's probably just better, but let's take a look at what they do reveal. Okay, because they do reveal 2 of these special inscriptions for Pincer 2, and then I guess we'll have to wait 36 hours to learn the other ones. I know that there's been things floating around in Discord and stuff, and all I'll say about that is look at the top right corner of this video. Okay, details are subject to the official update in game. Okay, so just because it's here doesn't mean it's going to be the same in game. Also, if it is not present in this video, there's probably a higher chance that those descriptions could change by the time it lands in the game. Who knows? Again, we're only 36 hours out, so it might be difficult to change these things right at the final hour. Okay, but just gonna throw that out there. We're only gonna touch on the things that we know for sure here, and then one little speculation. But this is Bulwark, which is the flag armament here, and this says the wielder's troop gains 2% damage resistance and an additional 3% combo attack damage resistance. Okay, now let's compare that to the existing flag for Pincer, Airtight. Now this is the inscription, by the way, in case you guys were wondering. This is the inscription that you can get from the armament shop in the courier station. Okay, this is how you get your hands on Airtight. So if you've been saving these inscription shards, like I've mentioned, I know they're hard to get, maybe you didn't have enough to save anyway, but if you have been saving them, you should be able to get Bulwark on day 1. Okay, if you really want to. Airtight, which is already in the game, says you gain 5% combo attack damage resistance. So okay, Pincer 2 from that perspective is just better, right? I mean, this is 5% combo, that's 2% all damage, 3% combo. So all in all, it's the same amount of combo attack damage resistance, but 2% of that is all damage resistance, which is just better. Okay, the original armament says whenever this troop deals smite damage, their troop takes 10% less damage for the next 3 seconds with a 5-second cooldown. If we hop back over to Pincer 2, the second half says whenever the wielder's troop receives basic attack damage, it has a 50% chance to take 10% less damage and deal 20% more smite damage for 3 seconds. Okay, so a little bit different function here between the two. Okay, the original Pincer is when you deal smite damage, you take 10% less damage for 3 seconds. Pincer 2 says whenever you receive basic attack damage, so somebody has to be hitting you for this to even do anything. Okay, it has a 50% chance to take 10% less damage and deal 20% more smite damage for 3 seconds. The issue with this is one, you have to be taking damage for this to work. Now Now you don't have to be taking damage for very long because it's 50-50 every turn, right? So the more turns you take damage, the higher probability this is actually going to trigger. But you know, again, if you're hitting somebody that's not hitting you back, then this won't do anything, right? And the 20% more smite damage you deal here might not line up perfectly with active skills, right? Which is typically when you would want that to line up. Basically what I'm saying here is because you don't really have any control over when this triggers, you don't have great control over, you know, this overlapping with active skills. All in all, I think this is objectively a better inscription, right? But bulwark for sure, you know, if you're in a rally garrison scenario, then of course it's more tanky, you would rather prefer that, but also you're always going to be receiving basic attack damage, right? If you're, whether you're the rally or you're the garrison, you're always receiving basic attack damage, so you're constantly getting new chances all the time to trigger this better effect, right? I mean, both flags have 10% less damage taken, but this one just gives you 20% more smite damage on top of that, right? The timing might not be perfect, but it is just an additional effect that you get over airtight. So all in all, I think this is better than airtight straight up, right? Is it so much better that you need to convert if you're a field fighter? I'm not super sure. We're gonna have to wait for testing. I mean, look, again, it's better, right? It is just better. So like there's no wrong answer here. Like if you convert it, yes, you're getting a better inscription, but 10 conversion stones, like, oh, I don't know. Like I said, for rally garrison, definitely better across the board. Obviously you want this, at least from what I can tell, but for fielding, I don't know if it's worth 10 conversion stones. Oh, they're so hard to get. I don't know. Remember guys, we have Delta 2 coming later this year in like 4 months. Okay, like it's right around the corner. So if these inscriptions don't jump out at you like, oh my god, these are so broken, then you could literally just wait a couple months and have another opportunity to get more inscriptions on a different formation, right? So anyway, with that being said, they also revealed Dominate, which is the scroll special inscription, and this is the one that you're going to be able to get from the KVK shop. Okay, now I just want to clear up a little bit of confusion in the community before we go over this. I just left KVK, right? And there were a lot of people kind of upset, like, hey man, you know, like KVK ends and then 3 days later, 4 days later, they're putting these new inscriptions in KVK shop. And I just want to remind you guys that they don't put them in the existing KVK shop. So whether you're in KVK or not in KVK, you're not gonna have access to this on day one. Okay, they will put this into newly opened KVKs. So I don't want people sitting there thinking like, oh man, if they had just released this 4 days earlier, I would have been able to get it. Like, no, that was not going to happen. Okay, they put this in newly opened KVKs. So if you entered KVK at any point before this update, you were not going to have access to this. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but at least you'll know like, hey, okay, I wasn't 4 days short of getting my hands on this. It was always going to come during your next KVK pop. How do I know this? Well, they literally said it right here. They said after the version update, the new special inscription Dominate for the scroll will be added to the inscription shop in newly opened Season of Conquest Lost Kingdoms. Okay, so if you were already in a KVK, you were not in a newly opened, you were in a previously opened. Anyway, I know what you're saying, Omniarch, shut up, just tell us what Dominate does. Okay, Dominate says the wielder's troop gains a 7% boost to smite damage dealt when dealing smite damage. If the hit troop has more than 50% units remaining, the wielder's troop deals 20% more smite damage to it for 3 seconds. If not, the wielder's troop gains a 30% bonus to this instance of smite damage dealt. This effect can be triggered up to 5 times per second with a 3-second cooldown. Okay, so this is extremely good, bro. This is so good. There is no downside to this special inscription. Okay, if we compare that to the existing Poplar special inscription, this one says the wielder's troop gains a 5% boost to smite damage. Okay, so as we can see, Wedge 2 objectively better in that degree. It goes from 5 to 7. Okay, whenever their troop deals smite damage, the target troop takes 20% increased smite damage for the next 3 seconds. This effect can trigger multiple times in a single second, up to 5 times before entering cooldown of 5 seconds. Okay, so what is the difference here? Well, the difference is that Poplar is a debuff to the target. Okay, whenever your troop deals smite damage, the target troop takes 20% increased smite damage for the next 3 seconds. With dominate, this is actually buffing your own damage output. Okay, so it's a little different. It's a subtle difference there, but what this does depends on how many troops the enemies have, and this will work AoE, right? So it's going to apply differently to each target that you hit. If some targets are above 50%, other targets are below 50%, it's going to apply differently depending. But basically the way this works is if the target has more than 50%, your secondary is going to deal 20% more smite damage. If they're below 50%, that active skill is what's going to be dealing 30% bonus. Okay, and this has a shorter cooldown, 3 seconds versus 5 seconds. That's a massive difference in cooldown. Okay, now either way, it's going to be effective for every skill cycle pretty much, but I don't know, I think objectively this is just better, right? I think this is just better. The only time I could think of Toppler being better is maybe in a rally garrison scenario where you're going to have your allies swarm down whatever you're hitting, right? So let's say your garrison has Toppler and you make the target take 20% increased smite damage, and then that rally is getting swarmed by smite damage infantry. Like maybe that is when you would prefer Toppler, I'm guessing, but all in all, dominate just seems better. It just seems better across the board. But anyway, that's all that they revealed in this video. Now I do just want to point out here, let's use a little bit of power of deduction. Okay, and to do that we will go to the wedge 1 formation. Okay, wedge 1 intrepid for the emblem gave you 10% boost to skill damage, and wedge 2 horseback action gave you 12.5% boost to skill damage delta. Okay, so I think it's safe to say that for the pincer formation, thundering gave you 10% boost to smite damage, and guess what, the new emblem probably going to give you 12.5% boost to smite damage. I think you know that, I know that, everyone knows that. Okay, that's what the emblem's going to be. They didn't show that in the video, so technically we don't know if that's the case, but like again, it seems like pincer 2 is just better than pincer 1 in the same way that wedge 2 was better than wedge 1, and so I think that it would make sense to make that logical, to arrive at that logical conclusion, right? Everyone knows that. So if we're looking at the emblem, I would say the emblem is, once again, for pincer 2, it's going to just be categorically better, right? I mean, you go from 10 to 12.5, it's just better, right? So the only sort of inscription we don't know for sure is the instrument, right? And again, I know that things have been floating around Discord and such, but if they're not in the video, I'm not going to share them here just because, again, we don't know if they're going to change it, right? There's like, if I'm using some logic here, perhaps there's a reason they didn't include it in the video, right? I mean, like, what are we talking about? Obviously it was in the game when they filmed that, right? So they specifically chose to not show the instrument. So I think there's a chance that whatever the community thinks the instrument might be could be different. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see when pincer 2 lands in the game if the new instrument is categorically better than this instrument. The existing pincer instrument gives you a 5% boost to smite damage. I suspect the pincer 2 instrument will just give you a 7%, right? I mean, we've already seen the scroll, we've already seen the flag, and the scroll went from 5 to 7 just like we saw with wedge 2, right? So I think it's totally reasonable that the pincer 2 inscription, it's going to be a 7% boost to smite damage, right? It's just the bottom half of the effect that we're not really sure about. Now demolisher, again, this is the pincer 1 inscription, says whenever you deal smite damage you have a 75% chance to ignore 50% of the target's defense. So another way to look at that is that this is basically equivalent to a 30, had to double check my math, 37.5% defense ignored on average, right? So by that I mean 75% of the time 50% is going to be ignored, 25% of the time 0% of the defense is going to be ignored, and that averages out to approximately 37.5% defense ignored whenever you deal smite damage, right? It says this effect can trigger multiple times in a single second, up to 5 times before entering its cooldown. So that's AoE, right? So Baichi hits 5 targets, all 5 you have the opportunity to ignore defense. If it only triggers once, the wielder's troop gains 100 extra rage. Okay, so that's actually really good. This is, you know, Sun Tzu hits with 1 target, boom, you gain 100 rage. Okay, a little bit of a rage engine there, which is quite nice. So again, we'll have to wait and see if the Pincer 2 inscription is better than that. 37.5% defense ignored if AoE, if not 100 rage. 10-second cooldown is quite long, right? And so if the Pincer 2 inscription has, you know, an effect that is, even if it's a little bit weaker, if it's got a shorter cooldown, that could affect things here as well. Also, we'll have to evaluate rally garrison versus open field. Obviously, in a rally garrison scenario, Demolisher is most of the time only going to give you 100 rage. Now, I say only as if that's a bad thing, but I mean, extra rage is always quite good, right? The faster you cast your active skills, the better. But perhaps Pincer 2 has a much better effect for rally garrison, right, where you gain rage and it does something else, whereas with this you're mainly just gaining rage. In the field, however, you're gaining, you know, quite a bit of extra effect here with that defense ignoring. So just wanted to throw that out there. The instrument is the only one where we're kind of on the fence. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, despite what we see, you know, in all the other unofficial channels, I should say. But so far, from what we can tell, you know, based on the scroll and the flag, and then the assumption that the emblem is just going to go from 10 to 12.5, which is, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. It seems to be the case that Pincer so far is just better, right? I mean, it just seems Pincer 2 is just better, right? Now, is it an absolute like night and day? If you don't get it, your account is just completely cooked? I don't think so. I mean, obviously, you know, with each piece, it's a few percent, and that adds up, you know. So if you had all 4 pieces legendary and you convert all 4 pieces, then, you know, you are gaining a meaningful boost, right? So it would be like, let's say you get an extra 2% boost from the scroll and the instrument, and then a 2.5% boost from the emblem. So that's a 6.5% boost to smite damage, and boosts are multiplicative, by the way. So that is a very big damage amplifier. So yeah, I mean, it is just better, right? I think it's just better. But again, you know, I made a whole video talking about this. Even myself, who is, you know, more so infantry focused than anything, I'm not going to be converting both sets of my infantry inscriptions all on day one, because we've got Delta 2 coming down the pipeline, and we have to wait and see how that's going to be, right? It could just be way better. Like it really is what it is. So that's kind of where I'm at here with Pincer 2, based on everything that they have officially revealed. With that being said, let's take a look at what else they revealed in this video. Esmeralda's wheel, we've got some chest pieces, some chest blueprints here. Not much else has changed as far as I can tell, so pretty much the same event that we have always expected. We've got Esmeralda's collection, so this is how you're going to get the tokens to spin said wheel. We have the Riches Unveiled event, which I think we've seen this already in the past, not that long ago. In fact, perhaps they've actually updated this. I think there was a little bit of fixing that they had to do with this event. I remember when it came out, they gave people extra shovels, I think, because of the way the event worked or something like that. So yeah, that event is coming back. Arms Training Lohar coming back with some more of Esmeralda's coins here. So that's good. We've got Runes Among Ruins, recover lost runes to claim wonderful rewards. This rune is quite keen to follow the latest news in the kingdom, and you might be able to find its tracks near the calendar. Okay, so not really sure what this is all about. I don't think we've ever seen the Runes Among Ruins event before. We've got the Governor's Choice event. This looks like a Valentine's Day event or something. So popularity star. This is, I don't know what this is all about, but we do have some rewards. Is this going to be like, if people nominate you, you get the Promise of Love, which is a legendary skin, 25% resource production? Pretty cool. I don't love the way the skin looks, but you know, if people in my kingdom want to vote for me to be most popular, I would love that, and I'll get a free skin out of it. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much. We've also got this 6 legendary commander sculptures, 3 material choice chests there. We've got the new event here, the Radiant Rivalry. Okay, so this is going to be the event where you can invade your enemy kingdom based on whoever wins these quests, right? So we've got 5 days of quests, so whoever uses the most building, construction, speed ups, technology research. So this is definitely something more for the early game, I would say, than the late game and end game. But either way, there's going to be 5 days worth of quests, and whoever wins gets to invade the loser's kingdom. We covered this in the update notes here, so now we know a little bit more about this. It's a 5-day questing series before the battle actually happens at the Radiant Spire, which I believe is in zone 2. Somebody clarified that for me over on the update video. And then we also see that Yaya is in the game William, which we already know. We've seen the skills for him already. No gem gathering speed here, folks. Okay, just want to point that out once again. We got the load, we've got some march speed here, and yeah, nothing looks like it's changed on Yaya's kit at all. Here we can see they show off the Mighty Assembly KVK sort of splash screen. All right, here we can see Bastion skills for some new commanders that I don't think we've ever seen bastions for commanders such as Joan of Arc Prime or for Margaret down here. So really interesting stuff. I wonder if they're going to scroll here to show us more of the yes, they are. Okay, so we got Freddy, that was Freddy, right? Yeah, Freddy, El Cid, CPO Prime up here. We have Edward of Woodstock, which we've seen. Richard we've seen, I believe. Yeah, we've seen Richard for sure. Constantine, we saw Attila down there as well. And then here you can see you can choose between their skills. Now, as I predicted in my video, you cannot choose their active skill, so you're just going to have a choice between, you know, their second, third, and fourth skill. But man, we're going to have some really good skills here to choose from for CPO and Joan of Arc, right? I mean, 40% attack, 15% march speed, extra march speed, or 20% infantry health, chance to deal damage over time, reducing skill damage here. I mean, Joan's support skill is going to be insane, right? Like if you use her fourth skill, if this commander troop is on the map, Cavs gain 10% health, and whenever the secondary use an active skill is a 100% chance to trigger this commander's sacred banner skill. So we're going to be able to just put that on anybody like that. That's basically just putting an active skill on cavalry, right? Cavs just get a third active skill now, I'm pretty sure. Is that how that's gonna work? Kind of insane, right? And that would like be definitely her best skill. Like there's not like the third skill on Joan is notoriously bad, right? Second skill is just a small amount of stats, but the fourth skill is just an active skill and 10% health. Like this is way better. It's not even close, right? We'll have to wait and see how this actually works. Maybe it's the case that it won't trigger sacred banner because she's not in the army, in which case this would only give you health, right? But yeah, I'm assuming it's gonna cast her skill, which is kind of broken. So we'll have to wait and see for the KVK to actually land in the game. Based on this here, is it possible that some of these KVKs, like we saw, you know, CPO and Joan, we saw their support skills. Does that mean we're going to see support skills for Julia Leong and William and YSG perhaps? Maybe, I don't know. Ethelfled as well. That's just my speculation. Of course, we already see Ethelfled and YSG in other KVKs with their bastion skills. But anyway, here we've got the Altar of Ashes. It looks just like the Altar of Darkness, but they've got the different rules and information there, and hopefully they zoom out here to show how it actually looks. I didn't mean zoom out that far. Okay, that's Leo. Okay, they're not going to show it, but they do show off the Alliance Stadium, which we covered in the update video, so not much has changed there. They used the King Arthur banner for the principals section. They also showed off the army group changes, which again, we covered all this in my update video. So if you guys want to see that, then go ahead and check that out on the channel. And finally, they optimized Ark of Osiris as well. So that's pretty much it for this video, folks. The main thing that I wanted to cover was the inscriptions that we know about. The emblem one, which we can deduce pretty easily as 12.5% boost to smite damage. I'm curious to know what you guys think about Pincer 2, at least what we know so far. Remember, I'll say this for a second time in the video, details are subject to the official update in game. So they could change these. So we have no idea, but it is like 30 hours away. So I suspect these are what we will be getting, but let me know in the comment section below what you think about Pincer 2. Is there anything I missed about these inscriptions, like particular use cases for Pincer 1 versus Pincer 2 that I didn't talk about in this video? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. While you're down there, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please drop a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton. Double check while you're down there to see if you're subscribed. You might think you are because you've seen a lot of my videos, but you're actually not. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.